The cheers around me were loud, but they felt far away. My hands clutched the folder holding my diploma, and my eyes searched the crowd. 6 seats in the front row had been marked with little white cards that read, "Reserved for family." Every one of them was empty. I scanned again just in case I'd missed them. My heart thudded in my chest, but the truth was clear. No one had come. No mother, no brother, no sister, not even my daughter. I stood there in my white dress and graduation cap, trying to hold a smile for the photographer, but it felt fake. 2 years of hard work, sleepless nights, and sacrifices had brought me here, yet I stood completely alone. The applause for the other graduates filled the air, but it only made the silence in my heart louder. I thought of how much this day meant to me, how I'd pictured hugging my daughter afterward and seeing pride in her eyes. Instead, I faced an empty row and a lump in my throat so tight I could barely breathe. 2 years ago, I almost didn't have a future to fight for. It was winter, and I got sick with a fever that wouldn't go away. At first, I ignored it, telling myself it was just the flu. But one morning, I woke up gasping for air. The doctor said it was pneumonia, and it had nearly filled both my lungs. I spent days in the hospital, hooked to oxygen, listening to machines beep around me. Lying there, I realized I didn't want my life to be just working shifts at the diner and going home too tired to do anything. I wanted to do something that mattered, something that would help people the way those nurses helped me. The idea of becoming a nurse took root that week. When I got out of the hospital, I promised myself I'd find a way to make it happen. It felt impossible, but the thought of staying the same felt worse. Going back to school at 37 was nothing like I expected. I signed up for a 2-year nursing program at the community college. My classes were during the day, so I switched to working nights at the diner. That meant I was either working or in class, with just enough time to sleep in between. My daughter Lila was 14 then, right in the middle of high school drama. She needed me, but I was often too tired to be fully there for her. I told myself it was temporary. My hope was that in 2 years, we'd have a better life. But the exhaustion was real. I studied on my breaks at work, flashcards propped against the cash register. I brewed extra coffee just to keep my eyes open during lectures. On the nights I didn't work, I studied until 2 a.m., then got up early to get Lila off to school. Some days, I wondered if I'd made a huge mistake. But I kept going. Money became a problem fast. Even with my night shifts, the tuition and books were more than I expected. I had one thing left of my dad's, a small fishing boat he'd left me when he passed. It wasn't much, but it was his pride and joy. Selling it was one of the hardest things I've ever done, but it was either that or drop out. My brother Mateo didn't understand. "Dad wanted you to keep it," he argued. "It's part of the family." But I told him I couldn't hold on to a boat I couldn't afford to use, while I was fighting to keep the lights on. He didn't talk to me for weeks after that, and even when he did, there was a cold edge in his voice. I told myself he'd get over it, but deep down, I wondered if he ever would. My mom was harder in a different way. She didn't argue, she just compared me to my younger sister, Isabel. Isabel was a lifestyle influencer in Portland, with thousands of followers and a life that looked perfect in pictures. Every time I called, Mom told me about Isabel's latest brand deal, her trips, her designer clothes. "You should be more like her," she'd say, as if I could just put on a new life like a dress. I bit my tongue, even though it stung. I didn't want to be like Isabel. I didn't want parties and cameras. I wanted a career that mattered, a chance to help people. But it was clear in my mom's eyes who the golden child was, and it wasn't me. I told myself that graduation day would change that. That maybe, just maybe, they'd see me differently then. As the months passed, the strain began to show at home. Lila would sigh when she saw me buried in textbooks at the kitchen table. "You're never around anymore," she complained one evening. I looked up from my notes, guilt stabbing at me. She wasn't wrong. Between classes, clinical rotations, and my night shifts, I barely had time to watch a movie with her or go to her soccer games. "This is for us," I told her. "I'm doing this so our future will be better." She shrugged and went to her room, leaving me staring at the doorway. I told myself she'd understand one day, but deep down I worried I was losing pieces of her trust while I built a better life for us. When the college sent out graduation information, I felt a rush of excitement. It was finally happening. I called my mom, my brother Mateo, and Isabel. "Mark the date," I said. June 12th, 6 p.m. at the community center auditorium. I even emailed the details so they'd have no excuse. I imagined them all in the audience. Mom clapping proudly, Mateo smiling, Isabel maybe even taking pictures. Lila would be in the front row, watching her mom walk across the stage. That image carried me through my last few weeks of assignments and exams. It was the finish line I had been crawling toward for 2 long years. Then, Isabel dropped her bomb. We were all sitting at Mom's kitchen table when she casually said, "Oh, by the way, I'm hosting a charity gala for the Children's Hospital." She scrolled through her phone, showing pictures of the venue, a glittering ballroom in Portland. "It's going to be huge. Celebrities, donors, the works. June 12th. I froze. "That's my graduation day," I said slowly. Isabel tilted her head. "Oh, well, it's in the evening. Maybe you can come after?" I shook my head. "My ceremony starts at 6. I won't be free until at least 8:30. Isabel just smiled. "That's too bad. The gala ends at 9. My stomach sank. A week later, my mom called to explain. She said, "We can't miss Isabel's gala, Julia. Important donors will be there, and you know how hard she's worked for this event." I bit back my frustration. "I've worked hard too, Mom. 2 years of school while working nights." She sighed. "I know, but we have to support Isabel. Maybe we can stop by your graduation for a little while?" I knew that was impossible. The gala was over an hour away, and traffic between our city and Portland could eat up 2 hours by itself. But Mom didn't seem to care. That was when it hit me. If they had to choose, they weren't going to choose me. Not everyone let me down. My neighbor, Mrs. Keene, who had watched Lila after school sometimes, promised she'd be there. "Front row, camera ready," she said with a wink. My best friend, Marcus, who I'd met at the diner, also swore he wouldn't miss it. "I'll cheer so loud they'll have to write your name twice," he joked. Their words gave me some comfort, but the ache in my chest stayed. I'd always known my family favored Isabel, but I thought, just this once, I'd be the one they showed up for. Now I wasn't so sure. About a week after Mom's phone call, Isabel stopped by my apartment. She never came over without a reason, so I knew something was coming. Sure enough, as soon as she sat down on my couch, she turned to Lila. "You know who's going to be at my gala? Jordan Lee." Lila's eyes widened. Jordan Lee was a pop singer she adored. "He's performing 2 songs, Isabel continued, her voice silky, "and I can introduce you to him." Lila's face lit up like a Christmas tree. "Really?" Isabel nodded. "Of course. You just have to come to the gala with me. We'll dress you up, do your hair. It'll be the night of your life." My heart sank. I could see the pull in my daughter's eyes, the kind of pull no tired graduation ceremony could compete with. "Lila," I said gently, "my graduation is the same night." She looked down, biting her lip. Isabel gave me a little shrug, as if to say, "May the best event win." I tried to counter the temptation. That night, over dinner, I told Lila what it would mean to me to have her there. "When I walk across that stage, I want to see you in the front row," I said. "You're the reason I kept going when things were hard." She didn't meet my eyes. "I don't know, Mom. The gala sounds amazing. And it's for charity, so it's a good thing, right?" I wanted to say the charity was just Isabel's latest way of showing off, but I bit my tongue. "It is a good cause," I admitted. "But I'm your mom. This is my night. You'll have other chances to meet celebrities, but you'll only see me graduate from nursing school once." She nodded, but I could tell her mind wasn't made up. The air between us felt heavy, like we were both afraid to say what we were really thinking. 2 days later, Mom called again. "Julia, I've been thinking." She began in that tone she used when she was about to smooth over something she had no intention of changing. "Maybe we can stop by your ceremony for a bit, then head to the gala." I almost laughed. "Mom, that's not possible. You'd have to leave before it even started to make it in time." She gave a little sigh. "Well, we'll see. We just don't want to disappoint Isabel. She's counting on us to be there." The words stung. I had been counting on them too, but apparently my feelings didn't carry the same weight. I hung up feeling a mix of anger and resignation. I'd learned a long time ago that, in my family, "we'll see" usually meant no. The day before graduation, Lila still hadn't given me an answer. Every time I asked, she'd say, "I don't know yet." I tried to keep busy, picking up my cap and gown from the college bookstore, making sure my white dress was pressed and ready. I even bought a small bouquet for myself, white lilies, my favorite, since I didn't want to count on anyone else bringing flowers. That evening, I found Lila scrolling through dresses on her phone. "What's that for?" I asked, even though I already knew. Just looking, she said, not meeting my eyes. I went to bed early, telling myself not to think about it. Tomorrow would come, whether I faced it with joy or dread. The next morning, sunlight streamed into my room, warm and bright. I reached for my phone to check the time. It was later than I'd planned to wake up, and the apartment was too quiet. I got up, walked to Lila's room, and found her bed neatly made. On her pillow was a folded piece of paper. My heart dropped as I opened it. "Mom, I'm sorry. I went with Aunt Isabel to help set up for the gala. I'll see you after. Love, Lila." My hands shook. I sat on her bed, staring at the note, the words blurring as tears filled my eyes. She'd made her choice, just like the rest of them. I felt hollow inside, the excitement for my big day slipping away before it had even begun. The moment I stepped into the auditorium, I felt my stomach twist. The air smelled faintly of polish and fresh flowers, and the soft murmur of voices floated over the music playing through the speakers. Around me, clusters of graduates in their caps and gowns chatted excitedly, their families circling them like satellites. Some parents carried balloons, others clutched bouquets, and cameras flashed as they snapped photos before the big moment. I walked slowly toward the graduates' lineup area, my heels clicking softly against the glossy floor. Instinctively, my eyes went to the section of seating I'd reserved. 6 perfect chairs in the second row, each one with a white paper card taped to the back reading "Reserved for Family." They were all empty. My heart gave a little lurch. I tried to remind myself they might just be late. Maybe there was traffic. Maybe they were parking the car. A woman's voice came over the loudspeaker, asking graduates to line up in alphabetical order. I adjusted my cap, took my place in line, and swallowed hard. Around me, classmates laughed nervously with their loved ones who had walked them to the lineup area. My loved ones were an hour away, sipping champagne under chandeliers. The music shifted to the familiar notes of pomp and circumstance. We began the slow walk into the auditorium. I kept my chin high, telling myself to stay proud. This was still my day. When my row stood to approach the stage, I could feel my pulse in my ears. The dean smiled as each name was called, the applause following each graduate like a warm wave. Then, Julia Moreno. My legs carried me forward even as my chest ached. I crossed the stage, reached for the diploma, and gave the dean's hand a firm shake. The applause was polite, measured, the same as for everyone else. But there was no sudden cheer, no whistle, no one calling my name. My gaze flicked toward those 6 empty seats one more time. They stared back at me, still vacant, still untouched. In that moment, the years of work, the sleepless nights, the double shifts, all of it was mine alone. The recognition I'd imagined from my family didn't come. I walked back to my seat with the diploma case in my hand, and a lump in my throat I couldn't swallow away. The ceremony ended with a cheer as all the graduates tossed their caps into the air, the black squares spinning against the bright auditorium lights before falling back down in a soft patter. People laughed, shouted congratulations, and rushed into the aisles to find their families. I stayed in my seat for a moment, letting the noise wash over me. When I finally stood, I moved with the crowd toward the courtyard outside. The warm June air hit my face, carrying the scent of blooming roses from the garden beside the building. Everywhere I looked, there were pairs and groups, graduates hugging their parents, posing for pictures with siblings, holding flowers, and laughing through tears. I took out my phone, half hoping I'd find a message from my mom, or Isabel, or even Mateo. Instead, the first thing that popped up was Instagram. Isabel had posted a series of glossy, filtered photos from the gala. She was in a silver gown, Mateo in a tailored suit, Mom in an elegant navy dress. And there was Lila, wearing a sparkling blue dress I'd never seen before, her hair curled and pinned perfectly. She was standing beside Jordan Lee, smiling like she was on top of the world. The caption read, "An unforgettable night for a great cause, charity gala #Jordan Lee." My thumb hovered over the screen and my chest tightened. While I had been walking across the stage to polite applause, they had been laughing, clinking glasses, and basking in the glow of a night they deemed more important than my achievement. A mix of sadness and anger pressed down on me. The space between us had never felt so wide, not just in miles but in what we valued, in what we showed up for. It was like staring at proof that I'd been placed second in my own family's priorities, and maybe had been all along. I didn't realize how stiff my face had become until a voice broke through my thoughts. "Hey, superstar." I turned to see Marcus grinning at me, his eyes warm in a way that made the ache in my chest soften. Beside him was Mrs. Keene, holding a small gift bag in both hands. "We didn't want you to walk out of here empty-handed," she said, pressing the bag into mine. Inside, nestled in tissue paper, was a sleek silver stethoscope. My name was engraved along the tubing, Julia Moreno. My eyes blurred immediately. "You too?" My voice cracked, and I had to pause. "Thank you." I hugged them both, holding on a second longer than I meant to. The weight in my chest didn't disappear, but for the first time that day, something warm pushed back against it. "Come on," Marcus said. "Coffee's on us." We walked across the street to a small cafe. The smell of roasted beans and cinnamon rolls wrapped around me as we stepped inside. We found a table near the window, and they asked me about my plans now that school was over. I told them about the job interviews I had lined up, the hospital I was hoping to work for, the specialties I was considering. They listened intently, and every "we're proud of you" felt like a lifeline. For an hour, I almost forgot the empty seats. Almost. Halfway through my latte, my phone buzzed across the table. Isabel's name lit up the screen. My first instinct was to let it go to voicemail, but something in my gut told me to pick up. Her voice came out fast and shaky. "Julia, there's been an accident. Lila's hurt." My heart slammed against my ribs. What happened? There was a crowd rush when Jordan finished singing. Everyone surged toward the stage, and she got knocked over. She twisted her ankle. Bad. "We're at St. Mary's Hospital." "I'm on my way," I said, already grabbing my purse. Marcus started to ask what was wrong, but I was halfway to the door. Outside, the summer air felt hotter, heavier. My heels clicked quickly against the pavement as I rushed to my car. The image of Lila smiling in her gala dress tangled in my mind with the thought of her in pain, and my emotions twisted into something I couldn't name. The drive to St. Mary's took 15 minutes, though it felt longer. My white graduation dress bunched under the seatbelt, my cap tossed carelessly in the passenger seat. My thoughts were a storm: worry, anger, fear, and something else I couldn't pin down. The hospital's sliding glass doors opened with a hiss, releasing the scent of antiseptic and floor cleaner. I hurried to the reception desk, my voice tight as I asked for Lila. The nurse pointed me toward room 6. I pulled back the curtain and saw her sitting on the exam table, her ankle wrapped in a temporary bandage. She looked pale, but her eyes lit up when she saw me. Around her stood Mom, Isabel, and Mateo. None of them met my gaze. "Mom," Lila said softly, "you came." I crossed the room in 2 steps and took her hand. "Of course I came," I whispered, though my heart was still split between pride and pain. The room felt small, the walls closing in around us. Lila's ankle rested on a pillow, her shoe gone, the bandage wrapped neatly by the nurse. The sharp scent of antiseptic stung my nose. My mother stood on the opposite side of the bed, smoothing the hem of her dress with restless fingers, while Isabel leaned against the counter, avoiding my gaze entirely. Mateo stood near the door, arms crossed, eyes fixed on some spot on the wall as if watching this play out from a distance. I could feel 100 words pressing against my teeth, but I swallowed them for the moment, kneeling beside Lila. "Does it hurt?" I asked, brushing a strand of hair from her forehead. "Not so much now. They gave me something for the pain," she said quietly, glancing toward Isabel, then back to me. I was scared when I fell. Everyone was pushing, and I couldn't get up. My heart clenched. "I'm here now," I said, squeezing her hand. The silence from the others burned in my ears. No one offered me a greeting. No explanation, not even a hint of regret. It was as if we were all trapped in a moment we didn't know how to step out of. The doctor appeared, explained that it was a bad sprain but nothing broken, and that she'd need to rest and ice it for a few days. The others murmured their thanks, but still didn't look at me. As the doctor left, my patience cracked. I stood slowly, turning to face them. "So," I said, my voice sharper than I intended, "anyone want to tell me why no one thought my graduation was worth showing up for?" The words seemed to freeze them in place. Mom finally looked at me, her expression an uneasy mix of guilt and defensiveness. "Julia, this is hardly the time." "When is the time, Mom?" I cut in. "When I'm back to keeping my head down and being invisible again?" My voice was trembling, but I didn't care. Isabel opened her mouth, but I turned on her before she could speak. You scheduled your gala for the same night as my graduation. You knew the date for months, and you did it anyway. She shifted uncomfortably, her usual confidence gone. It was the only date the venue had. Don't, I snapped. You could have chosen another weekend. You didn't care enough to. Mateo cleared his throat as if to step in, but I wasn't done. All of you had a choice tonight. You chose her event over me. You dressed up, smiled for pictures, and drank champagne while I walked across the stage alone. Do you have any idea what that felt like? The room was so quiet I could hear the faint hum of the fluorescent lights. Lila's eyes darted between us, her fingers twisting the edge of the blanket. For the first time, Isabel's shoulders slumped. Mom's gaze fell to the floor, but no one spoke, and their silence was its own kind of confession. Lila's voice broke the tension. Mom, she said softly. I'm sorry I wasn't there. She looked so small sitting there, her ankle elevated, her gala dress wrinkled from the ER chair. I thought the gala would be more fun. I didn't think it mattered as much as it did. The sting in my chest deepened. It mattered, I said, kneeling again to meet her eyes. Not because of the photos or the speeches or the ceremony, but because I wanted you to see what I've been working toward these last 2 years. All those nights I wasn't home, all those times you felt like I wasn't there, it was for this. For us. She bit her lip, her eyes filling. I get it now, I promise I do. I pulled her into a hug, careful not to bump her ankle. Her arms around me were warm, familiar. And for a moment, I let myself just breathe. When I straightened, I looked at all of them. My mother, my sister, my brother, and felt a strange calm settle over me. I'm done expecting you to show up, I said evenly. If you can't see the value in my accomplishments, I'm not going to beg for your attention anymore. I'll celebrate my wins with the people who actually want to be there. Mom's eyes widened slightly, as if she'd never heard me speak so plainly. Isabel looked away. Mateo's jaw tightened, but he didn't argue. I turned back to Lila. We'll head home soon. You need rest. She nodded, still holding my hand. Inside, something shifted. The disappointment was still there, but it was no longer raw. It had cooled into something stronger. A boundary. 2 weeks later, I walked into Mrs. Keene's backyard and froze. String lights hung between the trees. Tables were covered with bright cloths, and my nursing classmates were scattered around, talking and laughing. Marcus stood by the grill, flipping burgers. Surprise! They shouted in unison. Mrs. Keene stepped forward, holding a cake decorated with white icing and a tiny fondant stethoscope. My eyes stung instantly. We couldn't let your graduation go uncelebrated, Marcus said. I laughed through the tears, feeling lighter than I had in weeks that night, surrounded by friends, neighbors, and classmates. I realized something. Family isn't always the people you're born to. Sometimes, it's the people who choose you. Over and over. And as I cut the cake, I knew I would never again measure my worth by who showed up for me, because I had already shown up for myself. Few days after the backyard surprise, the hospital emailed about the new hire pinning, white coats, a short program, and a small write-up by the community paper. I read the details twice, then opened a blank page and typed 3 names Mrs. Keene. Marcus. Classmates. It wasn't a grudge list, just the truth of who had carried me when my arms were shaking. The reporter called the next morning. We'll do a photo and a short feature, she said. Any family we should credit? My tongue pressed against my teeth. I thought of 6 white cards, reserved for family, and 6 empty chairs. Please list friends, neighbors, and classmates, I replied. Those who showed up. She paused, then said softly, Got it! That night, I pressed my white dress and laid my new stethoscope beside it, the engraving catching the light, Julia Moreno. I texted Marcus the time. He sent back a coffee cup emoji and, You're speaking, right? 2 sentences, I wrote. Maybe 3. Lila watched from the doorway. Her ankle was still tender, but her eyes were clearer. "Will Grandma be there?" she asked. "I didn't invite them," I answered. It felt like placing a glass down without letting it shatter. "I invited the people who came when it mattered." She nodded slowly. "Can I come?" "Only if you want to." We printed her an extra badge, Guest of Julia Moreno. She slipped it into her pocket like a promise. Before bed, I opened my notebook and wrote the line I needed to remember. On stage, thank the ones who showed up, and let silence do the rest. I taped the note inside my coat pocket and exhaled. Tomorrow wouldn't be loud. It would be deliberate, measured, and mine. No apologies, no explanations, simply gratitude said plainly. The auditorium smelled faintly of lemon cleaner and hope. New nurses lined the side aisle, fingers brushing the edges of their white coats. Mrs. Keene sat near the front, her camera ready. Marcus balanced 2 paper cups, like a waiter who'd sprinted in. Lila slid into the second row with my classmates, a brace peeking from her dress hem. When the chief nursing officer pinned my badge, she whispered, "Welcome home." My throat tightened. The applause settled. The podium light blinked. I stepped forward and kept my promise. "Tonight I want to thank the people who showed up when it counted," I said. Mrs. Keene, who saved my afternoons. Marcus, who kept my courage warm. My classmates, who shared notes and kept me awake when coffee couldn't. I stopped there. Not a dramatic pause, just air returning to my lungs. The room listened to the space where 4 other names might have lived. Silence became a mirror. I let it reflect whatever it wanted. After the photos, the reporter approached. "Quote, and attendees?" I smiled. "Print this. I'm grateful to everyone who showed up. Attendees, friends, neighbors, classmates." Her pen hovered. "No family?" "That's correct," I said, kindly. She nodded, then asked Lila for her name. "Guest of Julia," my daughter answered, proud and small at once. The reporter wrote it down exactly that way. As we left, Mrs. Keene squeezed my hand. "That was Grace," she murmured. Marcus bumped my shoulder. And accuracy. Outside, night gathered over the parking lot like a clean sheet. I breathed in the cool air and felt the old ache loosen, thread by thread. Under the streetlight, Lila squeezed my arm. "Next time, I'll be the one cheering first," she said. I believed her. Quiet victories are victories. They just stay where they matter. The article posted at dawn. A friend texted the link before my alarm. New nurse credits those who showed up. The photo caught me mid-smile, stethoscope gleaming. Lila blurred behind me like a promise walking into focus. By breakfast, my phone hummed. Coworkers sent hearts. Former patients from clinicals wrote, "You were kind to my mother. Thank you." The hospital account reposted with, "Welcome to the family, Julia." I replied with a simple, grateful face and put the device face down. At 9:12, Mom's first message arrived. "We saw the article. Why didn't you tell the reporter we're your family?" A minute later, "We are proud of you." Another, "Call me." My sister wrote, "That headline is petty." My brother sent a thumbs down. I considered every reply I'd rehearsed and chose none of them. Instead, I texted 3 people, Mrs. Keene. "Thank you for every afternoon." Marcus, "Coffee on me tonight." Lila, "You were brave yesterday." "Proud of you." By noon, the comments had done the arithmetic for me. People notice who appears in the frame. Social math requires no explanation. In the afternoon, the reporter emailed. Some readers asked about your quote. "Do you want to add anything?" I typed, "Please print this addendum. Showing up is a love language." Then I deleted it. I wrote, instead, "Thank you for covering the ceremony. No additions." That evening, Lila curled beside me on the couch. "Mom," she said, "I understand now." I kissed her hair. "Me, too." The phone buzzed again. I let it. I had patience to prepare for, a badge that said nurse, and a new rule I would keep. I will thank aloud the people who come, and let absence speak for itself. Outside, crickets stitched the evening together, neat, unremarkable, sufficient, and quiet. Thank you for listening to my story. Have you ever had to face a moment where the people you counted on didn't show up? How did you handle it? Share your story in the comments. I'd love to hear it.